What's going on, workforce? Brian here, and today we're talking about Summoner and all that is Summoner. So how we're breaking these up is that we've got so much to talk about. You've got PvE, PvP, the controller layout, HUD layout, the actions, the traits, the pets. So we're breaking these up into multiple videos to try to keep them a little bit shorter and a little bit more to the point. So if you're looking for just something about the layout and you don't care about like how the pet works, or you don't care about PvP, then you don't have to worry about sitting through just hours of video to watch it. That being said, in the description below, you should be able to see all the videos that relate to the Summoner, level 70, controller, and just Summoner guides, the information that you need to hopefully be the best Summoner you can be. So without making this intro forever, let's go ahead and just do this thing and let me know what you think in the comments below. First, let me congratulate you on making it to level 70. That's no small feat in and of itself. But what we're going to be focusing in on in this video is talking about all the various actions, traits, and kind of pet skills that you have access to as a level 70 summoner. So let's just go ahead and do this thing. So from your actions and traits menu, the Summoner is still broken up between the class of Arcanist and obviously the job of Summoner. So let's go take a look at these actions first. We'll jump in the job second. So Ruin, it deals unexpected damage with a potency of 100. Bio, it deals unexpected damage over time, and it's going to be a potency of 40, and it's going to last 18 seconds. Your first summon spell is going to summon a caster type pet to your side. So this starts off with Emerald Carbuncle, and then eventually evolves into Garuda. But with the Summoner Eggy Glamour system, you can change this to be anything you want, really. Physic is a 400 potency cure. Aether Flow is going to restore 10% of your maximum MP. Now, as you level, and your traits are going to give you more stacks of Aether Flow, but you're going to have... So Aether Flow is going to restore to you 10% of your maximum MP, and as you level, depending on what level you are, you're going to get additional stacks of Aether Flow. So it starts off with 1, and by the time you're in your 60s or even in your 50s, and beyond, that ends up being 3 stacks of that. Now, a couple of changes have been made to this is that while you're under the effect of Dreadworm Trance, you cannot gain these additional stacks. That feature is locked out to you. It's not actually that bad at all. It works out really well, but it's just a simple small change. Energy Drain deals unexpected damage with a potency of 150. Now there's an additional effect that absorbs a portion of that damage as HP and restores some MP to you. Now this costs 1 of your Aether Flow stacks, and in the early game, it makes a lot of sense. It's the only ability you have at that point. This comes into play heavily if you really want to get into Dreadworm stance really quickly, because if you've got Fester, Pain Flare, and Energy Drain, all of a sudden you've expended all 3 of your stacks and you're ready to switch into Dreadworm Trance. We'll talk more about that here in a little bit. Miasma deals unexpected damage with a potency of 20, and then has an additional damage over time effect with a potency of 35, and it lasts 24 seconds. So if you compare that to Bio, Bio is just a damage over time effect. It does not do any damage initially, but Miasma does a little bit of damage on the initial cost. You'll notice that it's got a duration of 24 seconds, and this is going to come into play here in a little bit. Your Summon 2 spell is going to summon a tank type pet to fight by your side. So most likely by this point in the game, it's going to be Titan. Resurrection basically is a raise. You have the ability as a summoner to battle raise, and this can be very important because if you've got a summoner or a red mage in your party, being able to get a healer back up can be a game changer in and of itself. So now we're really getting into the first big change of Stormblood. So originally, Bio and Bio 2 were 2 separate spells, but with Stormblood, Bio is on an upgrade path. So Bio will become Bio 2. You'll no longer have access to Bio when you learn Bio 2. At first, this seems a little off-putting, especially if you're coming from Heavensward, but in the end of it, it really feels much better in the long run. And eventually this gets upgraded again. You can see that the numbers here that has a potency of 35 and it lasts 30 seconds. So it's actually a potency drop initially, but it actually is going to last much longer. So it's all the more important you do not clip your Bio 2 because you're going to get your potency increase for the spell over the duration of the 30 seconds. The general math is, and if it's changed dramatically, I have yet to be made aware of it, but if you think of it is that you're going to have that tick, which is that the damage is going to tick or be applied to the target every 3 seconds. So over the course of 30 seconds, that is 10 ticks that are possible for Bio 2. So you have a potency of 350 total. So that's 35 times the 10 ticks equals 350. Now, spell speed and there's a lot of little factors in there. But if you compare that to Bio 1, you see that it's got a potency of 40, but it lasts 18 seconds, which is essentially could be considered 6 ticks, and thus you're going to have a potency of 240. So it is a big boost to your potency, and that's why it's really important that you don't clip this off. Now we're getting into another big change that happened with summoners with the release of Stormblood, and you see that Bane. So it basically spreads bio and miasma to all nearby targets of the enemy. Now you're going to see a huge drop off in damage here. So it's reduced by 20% for the second enemy, 40 for the third, 60 for the fourth, and 80 for all remaining targets. So the potency and the effect of that isn't as powerful as it was in Heavensward. And while I do love playing Summoner, I actually do agree with this change. Summoners have become the AoE kings with being able to spread their dots and do all of this different kinds of damage in Heavensward. So this seems like a pretty fair change because it actually impacts Scholar as well. But I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below on that. Now we get into Ruin 2. And Ruin 2 is still an instacast, and it deals unaspected damage with a potency of 100. This is a great spell because it keeps you mobile, but the weird thing is that it hasn't really sat with me yet, is that, you know, Ruin 1 does not become Ruin 2, but Ruin 1 can become Ruin 4. So there is a little bit of, like, I guess, weirdness with the Ruin spells in and of themselves. And I get that they probably wanted to keep, you know, an instacast ability out of that upgrade path, because Ruin 1 does not have an instacast, and Ruin 3 and 4 are not instacast abilities. So there is that aspect, but you know what? It is what it is. And so because of that change, though, I feel like when you go into lower level dungeon content, you do need to have access to Ruin, because you might not have access to Ruin 2. And if obviously you don't have access to Ruin 2, 3 and 4 are off the table completely. So there is a little bit of sinking weirdness that I found with this change, but we'll just leave it there. So we've gotten the ability Rouse, but we've also lost the ability Spur. So pretty much from a ability reduction, you can see that, you know, you're only going to have one pet boosting ability. So this still increases the pet's healing and damage dealt abilities by 40%. So this increases the healing and damage dealing potency of your pet by 40%. And your pet's going to also be immune to stun, sleep, bind, and heavy. So not a bad ability, and I'd recommend making sure you have easy access to it at any point in time. And the last ability for the Arcanist, so to say, is the Shadow Flare ability. This puts a ground targeting ability on the floor. It's going to last for 15 seconds. It's going to have a potency of 50 to anybody who is into that, and it's also going to add a 5% slow to those targets. So not a bad ability at all. The change here is that it is now instacast, and it's got a 60-second recast to it. And this is a great change. Prior to this, I would usually macro my swift cast with it. Now that is no longer needed, so it's on my bar. The only macro that I use with it is the auto ground target macro, and if you're interested in that, you can check that out in the macros and layout video. The links are in the description below. So let's talk about the job abilities. Summon 3, obviously you're summoning your attacker type. By default, this is Ifrit, and as we get more pets that we can glamour, hopefully we're going to have a lot of fun with that system. Fester is still one of my favorite abilities, but you want to make sure that the target is inflicted with your bio and miasma spells, because you do a potency of 150 if you just have one of them, and if you have both of them, that's a potency of 300. This does cost one Aether Flow stack, but it is really great for spike damage and really when you need to get things down quickly. Now, it's got a recast of 5 seconds, so you can use just this ability to be able to get into Dreadworm Trance if desired. It's really going to be kind of a personal decision for you and what you need at that time. Tribind is going to do a potency of 30, and it's going to bind nearby enemies. This is great for crowd control, but I rarely use it. I do have it on my bars, but again, I rarely use it. So Enkindle is going to order your pet to use their signature move. So depending on the pet that you have out, is going to, basically you're telling them, hey, do your special move. So each of them, the attacker, the defender, and the caster are going to do that. This was an ability you always wanted to stack with Spur and Rouse. I would recommend still stacking this with Rouse at this point, because you're still getting that additional 40% boost to it. Pain Flare is going to deal unexpected damage with a potency of 200 to enemies near it. This does use one of your Aether Flow stacks, but if you automatically have more than one enemy next to you, you're doing more damage than Fester. So this and Fester are really two great abilities that can kind of help get you up going, and this helps increase your AoE output damage. The nice thing about Pain Flare is that it did not suffer any of the nerfs that Bane and any of the other AoE nerfs that the Summoner has, so you can still do a lot of damage depending on how the enemies are stacked up. So Ruin 3 deals unexpected damage with a potency of 150. This is a 50-point increase over Ruin and Ruin 2. Now, you can notice the MP cost is at 1440. This is huge. This spell can drain your MP, but while you're under the effect of Dreadworm Trance, it is reduced. The nice thing is that even as we get into Ruin 4, you can see Ruin 4 in and of itself has a reduced MP cost. And this is triggered by your pet. So I'm finding I cast a lot more Ruin 3s because there is that chance that it's going to tick to Ruin 4. And I couple that with Lucid Dreaming so that I have way more MP refresh ability. So it gives me a lot more options to do damage in and of itself. Because we don't have Bio anymore and that Bio and Miasma get upgraded, Tri-Disaster, they've added a new effect to it. So you can see that it instantly applies Bio 3 and Miasma 3 to the target. Now if you don't have Bio 3 or Miasma 3, this is Bio 2 and Miasma. Now if you don't have Bio 3 or Miasma 3, this will be Bio 2 and Miasma, which is just fine. You can see that it also adds this Ruination effect to the target. This increases your Ruin spell's potency by 20. That Ruin 3 becomes 170, Ruin 1 and Ruin 2 become 120. So there's an additional effect there that keeps with that kind of tri theme. It's really great because Dreadworm Trance will reset Tri-Disaster. So right now Tri-Disaster is on a 60-second cooldown, but with this, you can use it and then you can use Dreadworm Trance and then you can even apply your Tri-Disaster to another target, or if nothing else, it's ready for you to go at any point. So it resets that, it takes that 60-second cooldown and removes it. It's really quite fantastic. So there's a lot of great properties to Dreadworm Trance. So it increases your damage dealt by 10%. So this is also just all your abilities just get enhanced with Dreadworm Trance. It also reduces the cost of Ruin 3. Now this is pretty much the same. We've all expected that from Heavensward. It's going to last 16 seconds. It's going to reset your Tri-Disaster recast timer, but it can only still be executed when you have 3 ethereal attunements. Now your bar is going to display this as you use those abilities, and we'll get into that in a different video. While you're in Dreadworm Trance, your UI is going to continually count down. So you're going to see that within your Dreadworm Trance hotbar. This is very handy to keep track of. And if you couple that with Tri-Disaster and Ruination, you're just going to have this really great moment where you're just bursting out a lot of damage. And then you can finish that up with Death Flare. Now Death Flare is an AoE ability, and this one also suffers the damage reduction that we've seen, but this has a potency of 400. And then it's going to just be reduced by 10, 20, 30, 40, and then 50% for all remaining enemies. So it's really quite powerful. Now Aether Pact has a recast timer of 90 seconds, but this is going to order your pet to do Devotion. Now Devotion is this ability that allows you to increase the whatever target that you're closest to by 5%. So that's their damage and healing magic potency, as well as they reduce the damage that they've taken. So if you're closer to a healer, it's going to use it on a healer. If you're closer to the tank, it will use it on the tank. So it's more positional. So it's a great ability. I actually really love it very much, but just make sure you're aware of your positioning when using this ability. At level 66, you learn Bio 3. And this does what the other Bio spells have taught you to do, except for that it also replaces those other Bio spells. So it's got a potency of 40 and it's going to last 30 seconds. So if you think about that and you let it run its course, that's a total potency of 400. Then with Miasma 3, you see that it's got an initial damage of 50 and a damage over time of 40 that's going to last 30 seconds. This has another damage over time potency of 400, so they really leveled this up. You also get an extended period of time. Before, with Miasma, it lasted 24 seconds, but here it gets boosted up to 30 seconds, which with Tri-Disaster puts that right in line with each other, so they're on the same timer. So with these both being at 30 seconds and Tri-Disaster having a recast time of 30 seconds, you want to have access to these if you want to apply them manually. But then when you get into the Dreadworm Trance, you could theoretically have these up and running every 30 seconds without fail. But that's going to take some time and practice to make sure that you've got those going. Your level 70 ability is actually quested, so you want to make sure that you're keeping up with the quests for the Summoner. Now this is the only ability that from a 60 to 70 was quested. The nice thing is all these other abilities are learned. You don't have to keep up with the story. This opens up a lot of freedom to all the jobs, and I'm glad they did it this way. But don't forget about him, because you're going to hit 70 and you're going to wonder how you summon Bahamut, and you're going to, you're going to have to go play catch up on the story. But this summons Demi Bahamut to fight by your side. None of your summons kind of turn into this, at least none of mine do, because they're all macro based. So you want to make sure you have access to this on your hotbar in and of itself. Demi Bahamut's going to last for 20 seconds. That means you can actually say Enkindle Bahamut, which tells Bahamut to use Akmorn, twice. Enkindle Bahamut's got a recast of 13 seconds. So once you summon him out, make sure you drop an Enkindle Bahamut, so that way before he is dismissed, you can do it again. And this is a huge ability. This is plus, as a summoner, it just feels fantastic. Now obviously you have to have your pet out for him to be summoned, and he is going to replace your pet, and your pet will return you once he auto dismisses. The summoner has some triggered abilities. So Ruin 4 you don't have access to, but your Ruin abilities get upgraded to Ruin 4 automatically, and this is triggered by your pet. Your pet has a 15% chance to activate this, and I feel like they activate it quite a lot. So I think 15% feels about right. It's pretty exciting. It's usually up. Plus it has that combo action that you see for melee DPS, and it's really quite exciting and fun to see. We talked about Devotion. Again, it is a great ability. Make sure that you're using it and your positional is correct there. Worm Wave is the ability that Bahamut is going to be executing automatically whenever you do an ability. So as you attack, he's going to use this, which is just adding to your overall damage output. And then Akmorn. It is that beautiful death flare that Bahamut executes. And again, it's going to have that AoE reduction over time, but you can pull 2 of these off, and it's got a potency of 680 for that first target. When you compare that to Death Flare, it's got a potency of 400. So you're getting a 280 potency boost with Bahamut, and that is and feels fantastic. Anyway, for Work to Game, my name's Brian. Thanks so much for watching this video. We hope to see you on our next, and just let us know in the comments below what you'd like to see from the channel regarding these guides, and we will hopefully see you next time. Thank you, and take care.
Hey, it's me. I'm in Chris's office. He doesn't know it, but we've got other videos for you to check out right here. And we've got the vlog down there in the corner. Plus, we've got some contact information, and you can totally subscribe to the channel that way as well. So we hope you do. We hope to see you in our next video. But until then, take care.